On this Monday night, on high alert, the rapidly growing wildfires that have thousands of Western Canadians on the run.
The next 48 hours will be a challenging situation.
The volatile conditions and air quality concerns. The prosecution's star witness testifies at Donald Trump's hush money trial. The lengths Michael Cohen said he went to protect his former boss. New encampments on Canadian campuses.
Trying to make us illegal is absolutely crazy.
The protesters' demands and defiance. And staying true to its Gaelic roots. Nova Scotia's mission to preserve and protect its culture and identity.
Global National with Donna Friesen. Reporting tonight, Carolyn Jarvis.
Good evening and thanks for joining us. We begin with the exploding wildfire emergency in Western Canada tonight. Extreme fire conditions are taking hold of northern BC and Alberta much earlier than normal, forcing thousands of people from their homes. In Fort Nelson, BC, this is the scene. A massive and fast-growing wildfire there has doubled in size. And today, officials warned that the Parker Lake wildfire continues to burn out of control and could reach the town in the hours ahead.
We have literally nearly 5,000 evacuees right now around the north. We are facing some extremely challenging conditions. We are extremely concerned.
Over the border in Alberta, there are two major wildfires near Fort McMurray and Grand Prairie. Locals there have been ordered out or are preparing to leave at a moment's notice. Neetu Garcha has our top story tonight.
An evacuation centre and RV parks all full in Fort St. John, BC, as more than 5,000 people remain out of their homes, some struggling to get pet-friendly accommodations.
Paying for the gas, getting around is pretty tough, you know. Just the not knowing whether or not you have a home to go back to, you know.
Fort Nelson residents are using this surveillance camera to keep an eye on their home. The Parker Lake wildfire is right in the community's backyard. BC fire officials say their resources are focused on protecting the community, but they issued a warning Monday morning of the potential for strong winds to push the wildfire towards the town.
Those winds are going to be here for the next 48 hours, and it's really just about when they show up and how long they're going to last.
The more than 5,000 hectare human-caused fire grew fast since its discovery on Friday.
It was just surreal, chaotic, stressful.
Evacuees like Taylor Bain Takosa say they didn't expect to have to be prepared this early in the season.
We usually get a dump of snow on May long. That's kind of tradition up here in the north.
As their waiting game gets more anxious because of the weather, those winds have pushed pollution from BC to Alberta. In Calgary, people woke up to thick smoke as crews in that province deal with their own fires.
Wildfire season did start early in Alberta. We did see drought-like conditions throughout the winter.
An evacuation order remains in place for several communities around Fort McMurray as an out-of-control wildfire nearly 20 kilometers southwest has grown to more than 5,500 hectares.
We made the kids pack a 3-day bag and then make sure we have all our important documents.
Back in BC, the Northern Rockies Regional Municipality Mayor is urging people to avoid the area.
Make sure that people are aware to stay away from northeastern British Columbia. It might look like a beautiful sunny day, but we're still at significant risk.
As communities grapple with uncertainty, fire officials in both provinces are reminding everyone to do their part in preventing more wildfires. Neetu Garcha, Global News, Vancouver.
A wildfire burning in Manitoba's north forced the evacuation of the entire community of Cranberry Portage. The wildfire began Thursday before the order to leave was issued on Saturday. The director of Manitoba's wildfire service says he's never seen anything like it.
It was moving about 2 kilometers an hour, and Cranberry was right in the way there. I've been working in wildfire for 40 years. I've never seen a fire move like this fire moved.
The director says the fire was caused by dry lightning, and while the soil is usually moist at this time of year, because of drought, the landscape is tinder dry. Firefighters from Ontario have arrived to help, joining crews from Saskatchewan. Fortunately, the fire, which is currently 31,500 hectares, has not grown since Saturday. Those wildfires have triggered air quality warnings across Western Canada. Smoke is blanketing northern BC, northern Alberta, the Northwest Territories, and Manitoba. It's also moving into Saskatchewan. Upper-level winds are actually driving the smoke down through the U.S. Midwest before moving east into Ontario and Quebec. The red zones show where air quality warnings are in effect as those out-of-control wildfires burn. Air quality is expected to fluctuate over the next few days due to wind direction and fire behavior and any rain that may fall. In New York, the hush money trial involving former U.S. President Donald Trump heard dramatic testimony from Trump's one-time lawyer and fixer, Michael Cohen. Cohen described how Trump feared allegations of infidelity would hurt him in the 2016 election and laid out an alleged scheme to buy and suppress negative stories. As Jackson Proskow reports, Cohen testified the hush money deals were designed to keep Trump's name off the books.
You have any messages for Donald Trump today?
He is the prosecution's star witness, the close confidant who turned on his former boss. On the stand, Michael Cohen laid out a scheme with the publisher of the National Enquirer to buy and suppress negative stories that could hurt Donald Trump's chances in the 2016 election. What I was doing was at the direction and for the benefit of Mr. Trump, Cohen testified when asked about one such alleged agreement involving former Playboy model Karen McDougal. The stakes of the so-called catch-and-kill deals grew even larger.
And when you're a star, they let you do it.
After the infamous Access Hollywood tape dropped right before the 2016 election. Cohen says the campaign learned that Stormy Daniels was shopping her own story of an alleged affair with Trump. He testified Trump wanted to keep it quiet until after the election. He said to me, "This is a disaster, a total disaster. Women are going to hate me." When Cohen was asked about the $130,000 payment and the non-disclosure agreement with Daniels, he testified Trump reassured him. He stated to me, "Don't worry, you'll get the money back." Under oath, Cohen said everything required Mr. Trump's sign-off. After the non-disclosure agreement was signed, Cohen said he told Trump this matter is now completely under control and locked down.
We paid a lawyer a legal expense, and we have a legal expense is a legal expense.
Trump has insisted it was all above board. He denies the affair and has pleaded not guilty to all charges. In the coming days, the defense is expected to go after Cohen's credibility. He has previously admitted lying under oath and served jail time. That may not undo the damaging testimony delivered against the former president. Jackson Proskow, Global News, Washington.
Turning now to the situation in Gaza and the horrifying reality of war captured on camera. And a warning, some of the images you're about to see are very disturbing.
Mama,
Rescuers heard the cries of this child under the rubble of a building that was struck in northern Gaza over the weekend. Piece by piece, they removed the tiles that covered the child's face. The young girl calls for her mother, but she was killed in the airstrike. Meanwhile, in southern Gaza, the United Nations says one of its foreign security staff was killed and another worker injured when their vehicle was struck by Israeli gunfire. It's the first foreign UN staffer to be killed in Gaza since October 7th. Residents of the city say Israeli bombardments are intensifying ahead of a major military operation by the Israeli army. Redmond Shannon reports.
A United Nations vehicle reportedly hit by Israeli gunfire in Rafah, killing one international staff member and injuring another worker. The first foreign UN worker killed in Gaza since October 7th. People in Rafah say it is becoming even more dangerous. The UN says hundreds of thousands have now fled. Some are doing so for the third or fourth time.
Even the charity food is now gone. It is like we are escaping death for death.
Israel warns it will invade Rafah despite threats from Washington to withdraw some military support.
The thought of bombs leveling neighborhoods in Rafah, where 1.3 million Palestinians have been displaced, suggests that there is a massacre on the horizon.
Many have come to Deir al-Balah in central Gaza. It is relatively safe, as renewed fighting also rages around Jabalia camp in the north.
This water tank was barely enough for those who were already here. So what about those who have joined us?
UN figures show aid flow has slowed to a trickle in recent days after Israel took control of the Rafah crossing from Egypt. On Monday, a group of Israeli protesters blocked an aid truck heading for Gaza, trashing some of the aid. Memorial Day in Israel is normally a unifying occasion to honour troops and civilians killed in hostilities. But Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu was heckled at one event, as was far-right Security Minister Itamar Ben-Gvir. "He is a criminal," yelled one woman. Despite broad support in Israel for its operation in Gaza, there remains division about how it is being executed. More than 7 months on, it's thought around 100 Israeli hostages are still alive somewhere inside the Strip. Redmond Shannon, Global News, London.
In Ukraine, Russian forces are intensifying their assault along the country's northeast border. Ukrainian police officers in the town of Vovchansk are helping residents flee, with Russian forces already at their doorstep. Thousands of civilians in the region are heading to the city of Kharkiv. The regional governor says Russian troops are trying to stretch the front line by attacking in several directions. Ukraine's army also admitted the Russians were achieving some tactical success, but reserve forces are being brought in to reinforce defenses. Tens of thousands of people are protesting in Georgia, taking to the streets of the capital, rallying against what they call Moscow's law. The legislation, which was just approved by the country's parliament, requires nonprofits to register with the authorities if they receive more than a fifth of their funding from abroad. The Kremlin uses a similar tactic to crack down on independent news media and groups that are critical of the Russian government. The criminal trial of a key organizer of the so-called Freedom Convoy got underway in Ottawa today. Pat King pleaded not guilty to 9 charges against him related to that major protest that paralyzed downtown Ottawa 2 years ago over COVID-19 public health measures. Mackenzie Gray reports on what happened today and what to expect in the weeks to come.
A central figure of the convoy protests back in Ottawa, but this time for court. Just blocks from where the Crown alleges Pat King committed 9 offences, including mischief and counselling others to commit intimidation, charges King pled not guilty to.
You could be looking at a very significant prison sentence of up to 10 years.
The Crown says they'll bring forward witnesses who lived downtown during what they describe as an occupation and use clips from King's frequent live streams during the convoy. Mischief was Mr. King's mandate, the Crown stated in court. While individuals are constitutionally entitled to express their views regardless of whether those views are right or wrong, such constitutional protections are not limitless.
Support us, man.
King, a high-profile figure during the nearly month-long convoy in downtown Ottawa, had previously peddled the white nationalist Great Replacement conspiracy theory and said this about the Prime Minister.
Trudeau, someone's going to make you catch a bullet one day. To the rest of this government, someone's going to do you in.
King also organized a slow roll of the Ottawa airport during the convoy, which the Crown says they plan to tie to his mischief charge. But his counsel argued he was not a central leader of the movement. There were many groups doing many different things, King's lawyer said, and ultimately, that will be something that I'm asking your honor to consider, vis-a-vis Mr. King's lack of involvement. Natasha Calvino also argued against the use of the term Freedom Convoy, preferring it be called a demonstration. But however you describe it, the court heard how it impacted 79-year-old downtown resident Victoria Delarond, who said in her 30 years living downtown as a visually impaired person, she never experienced something as severe as what my experience was during the incident. It made me feel trapped and very worried for myself and others. King's legal team unsuccessfully attempted to get the case moved out of the capital, saying he was too notorious in Ottawa to get a fair trial. But the case is moving ahead, and it's expected to last 3 weeks. Carolyn?
Mackenzie Gray in Ottawa. Thanks. Standing their ground on campus. Coming up, the answers protesters are demanding from some Canadian universities. A chorus of boos and cheers ushered Jerry Seinfeld on stage at Duke University's graduation ceremony, with dozens of people walking out. The star comedian, who was the commencement speaker for the event, has been a vocal supporter of Israel and its military since Hamas's October 7th attack. Pro-Palestinian protests at universities have become widespread. A number of encampments at Canadian universities are still in place after several weeks. Protesters adamant on staying put until their demands are met. At the same time, patience is wearing thin for university administrators, who are now taking steps to take these camps apart. Mike Armstrong reports.
One of the newest student encampments to go up in Canada is less than a kilometre from the first. Just blocks from McGill University, Sunday students took over the quad at UQAM, the University of Quebec in Montreal. The other new encampment is at Dalhousie in Halifax. Students say their efforts at dialogue with the administration were turned down. A spokesperson says the camp is primarily in support of Palestinians, but not exclusively.
We want to know if our tuition money is going towards weapons, gas line pipes, anything that is upholding Western imperialism and settler colonialism.
McGill University was the first encampment to go up in Canada, April 27th. Since then, there have been 15. Only 2 camps have been dismantled so far, the University of Calgary and the University of Alberta in Edmonton. The president of that university, in a statement, says calling in the police was a tremendously difficult decision, but says the site was a fire hazard and there was a serious risk of violence. Now, those are some of the same arguments being made in Montreal. McGill University went to court Monday seeking an injunction to have its encampment shut down. It's arguing firefighters haven't been allowed in, tents are blocking an emergency exit from a building, and that sanitation is an issue.
Demonstrations are a way of informing the public.
This lawyer for one of the student groups says the burden of proving safety is an issue falls to the university. In its injunction request, McGill does admit Montreal police have pushed the administration to find a peaceful resolution and that the criteria for a police intervention have not been met. The judge's decision is expected Tuesday.
It's all or nothing for us. We want our demands.
At the University of Toronto, students promised Monday they're not moving. Among those speaking out were 2 people who say they're alumni and wanted to end their relationship with the university, tearing up their diplomas. Mike Armstrong, Global News, Montreal.
Deadly deluge ahead. Flash floods and cold lava flows wreak havoc in Indonesia. Search and rescue operations are underway in Indonesia after flash floods and mudslides killed 43 people this past weekend. Monsoon rains mixed with volcanic material from a nearby active volcano triggered cold lava flows that swept through villages, submerging more than 100 homes. More than 3,100 people have been displaced. Demolition crews in Baltimore have freed the Dolly container ship that felled the Francis Scott Key Bridge. Explosives were used to break down the final span of the bridge from the bow of the ship that rammed into it. It's a major step to clear the busy shipping channel. The bridge collapsed on March 26 after the Dolly lost power and crashed into a support column. 6 construction workers were killed. King Charles made a rare joint appearance with his son Prince William today. The King arrived at a British Army airfield to hand over a senior military role to the Prince of Wales. William becomes a Colonel-in-Chief of the Army Air Corps, a position held by Charles for 32 years. The visit was the King's latest engagement since he returned to public duties after an unspecified cancer diagnosis. William also took a break from official duties, spending time with his wife Catherine after her cancer diagnosis. Honoring heritage. Next, how Nova Scotians are celebrating their Gaelic roots. Every year during the month of May, Nova Scotians are encouraged to honor their province's history of Gaelic language, culture, and community. It all dates back centuries, and as Megan King reports, there's lots to celebrate about how New Scotland got its roots.
When in Nova Scotia, there's a palpable connection to Gaelic culture and identity. You only need to go as far as the province's name to know New Scotland.
Nova Scotia culture and Gaelic culture are intertwined.
and have been for over 250 years.
The provincial government, alongside many cultural groups, is working to preserve the minority language of Gaelic, with more than 500 students taking it as a subject in schools, and with roughly 2,000 speakers. Nova Scotia is one of the biggest Gaelic diasporas outside of Scotland.
The language and the culture were basically pressed in the public domain. They weren't given space. And so part of the renewal process is to encourage safe space for language and culture.
It's so encouraging to see the strength of that culture and how it's survived over the years.
Across the pond, Lisa Annette is part of a Scottish team that encourages interest in the language.
We have to do all we can to protect minority languages and minority cultures. For that reason, for the diversity of culture and the richness of culture and language, I think it's incredibly important. So it's great to see and hear about the efforts and the resource that's put into that in Nova Scotia.
Children are being encouraged to know the language as well through providing Gaelic translations on signs.
Like many Nova Scotians, I have Scottish heritage, and for the last few years I've been learning Gaelic, and this is an opportunity for me to share the language with visitors at the museum, but also it's an opportunity for young children to kind of hear the language, be introduced to the language.
With 1/3 of Nova Scotia's population descending from the early Gaels who emigrated in the 18th and 19th centuries, maintaining the Gaelic language is a way of fortifying cultural expression, often seen through songs, music, and a tradition of storytelling. Megan King, Global News, Halifax.
And that is Global National for this Monday night. I'm Carolyn Jarvis. Tonight's Your Canada are these baby birds in Victoria. We love seeing your Canada. Please email your photos to viewers@globalnational.com. Thanks for watching. Hope you'll join us again tomorrow night. Have a great night.